I wasn't supposed to find out this way. But when your fiancé looks you dead in the eye and says she's not ready to commit after 3 years together, you know something's broken. You just don't know how badly. Not yet. My name is Maya. I'm 28 years old. I work in digital marketing for a tech startup in Seattle. Normal life. Normal dreams. I thought I had a normal relationship too. His name was Ethan. Tall, charming, the kind of guy who remembers your coffee order and texts you good morning without fail. We met at a mutual friend's wedding. Cliché, I know. But it felt like fate. He pursued me relentlessly for months until I finally said yes to a date. That was 3 years ago. 3 years of building a life together. 3 years of introducing him to my family, merging our friend groups, planning our future. He proposed to me on a beach in Maui. Got down on one knee with a ring he'd been saving up for. I cried. He cried. Everyone cried. It was perfect. Until it wasn't. It started small. He'd come home late from work more often. He'd be on his phone constantly, angling the screen away from me. When I asked about wedding planning, he'd get vague. Let's not rush it, he'd say. We have time. But time was the one thing I thought we had plenty of. I was wrong. The conversation happened on a Tuesday night. I remember because Tuesdays were our nights. No distractions, just us, cooking dinner together and watching whatever show we were binging. That night, I made his favorite pasta. I even bought the expensive wine he liked. We sat down at our dining table, the one we'd picked out together at IKEA on a lazy Sunday afternoon 6 months prior. I poured the wine. He barely touched his glass. Maya, we need to talk. Those 5 words. They're never followed by anything good. I set my fork down slowly. My stomach was already twisting into knots. Okay. He wouldn't look at me. His eyes were fixed on his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. About the wedding. About everything. And my voice was steady. I'm proud of that. Inside, I was already falling apart. I don't think I'm ready. Silence. The kind that's so heavy it presses down on your chest and makes it hard to breathe. Ready for what? I asked, even though I knew. I needed to hear him say it. For marriage. For this level of commitment. I love you, Maya. I do. But I think we moved too fast. I think I need space to figure things out. Space. That word people use when they want to break up but don't have the courage to actually say it. Are you breaking up with me? My hands were shaking. I clasped them together in my lap where he couldn't see. No. God, no. I just need time. I need to make sure this is what I really want. That we're what I really want. The air left my lungs. 3 years together and he wasn't sure. 3 years of shared rent, shared bills, shared dreams, and he needed to figure out if he wanted me. How much time? I managed to ask. He finally looked at me then. His eyes were pleading, like I was supposed to feel sorry for him. I don't know. A few months maybe. I just need you to be patient with me. Can you do that? Can you wait? I stared at the man I thought I'd spend my life with. The man who'd promised me forever in front of a Hawaiian sunset. The man who was now asking me to put my entire life on hold while he decided if I was worth keeping. And I smiled. It wasn't a real smile. It was the kind of smile you give when you're dying inside but refuse to let them see it. I made coffee, kissed him goodbye when he left for work, and told him to have a good day. He hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you for understanding." I nodded against his chest and said nothing. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. First, I called my boss. Told her I needed to take a leave of absence. Family emergency. She was sympathetic, told me to take. I'd always wanted to go to Thailand. Ethan had promised we'd go for our honeymoon. Well, I decided I wasn't waiting. The flight was leaving in 3 days. I had 72 hours to erase myself from the life I'd built in Seattle. I told no one. Not my parents. Not my sister. Not my best friend Rachel, who I'd known since college. No one could know because if they knew, they'd try to stop me. They'd tell me I was being rash, that I needed to think this through, that I should talk to Ethan. But I was done talking. Done waiting. Done being the understanding girlfriend who puts her life on pause for a man who couldn't decide if she was enough. I spent those 3 days packing. Not everything. Just what I needed. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, my passport. I left behind the photo albums, the sentimental gifts, the engagement ring. I placed the ring on the dining table where we'd had that conversation, along with a note. The note was short. Just 2 sentences. You said you needed time to figure things out. So do I. No explanation. No forwarding address. No promise to come back. On the morning of my flight, I woke up at 4 a.m. Ethan was still asleep. I watched him for a moment, this man I'd loved so completely, wondering if he'd even care that I was gone. Wondering if he'd feel even a fraction of the pain he'd caused me. Then I picked up my suitcase and walked out the door. I didn't look back. The Uber to the airport was quiet. The driver tried to make small talk but gave up when I barely responded. I wasn't rude. I just had nothing to say. My mind was already somewhere else, planning the next phase of my life. A life that didn't include Ethan. At the airport, I checked in, went through security, and sat at the gate waiting for my flight. I turned off my phone completely. No texts, no calls, no last-minute second-guessing. When they called for boarding, I stood up and walked onto that plane without hesitation. 14 hours later, I landed in Bangkok. The heat hit me the moment I stepped outside the airport. It was suffocating and humid and completely overwhelming. I loved it. It felt like being born into a new version of myself. I checked into a small hostel in the Khao San Road area. Nothing fancy, just a bed and a shared bathroom. I didn't need luxury. I needed anonymity. I needed to be somewhere no one knew my name or my story or the fact that I'd just abandoned my entire life. For the first week, I did nothing but wander. I walked through night markets, ate street food, got lost in temples. I didn't post photos. I didn't update anyone. I just existed, quietly and completely alone. And it was terrifying. But it was also the freest I'd felt in years. Back in Seattle, I later learned, Ethan came home that first day to an empty apartment and a note. He called me immediately. When my phone went straight to voicemail, he called again. And again. And again. 23 times that first day alone. Then he started calling my friends. My family. Anyone who might know where I was. No one did. My mom called Rachel in a panic. Rachel called my sister. My sister showed up at the apartment and found Ethan pacing like a caged animal, demanding to know if she'd heard from me. She just left, he kept saying. She just disappeared. Who does that? My sister, bless her, looked him dead in the eye and said, someone who's done waiting. But he didn't get it. Not yet. He posted on Facebook asking if anyone had seen me. He filed a missing persons report, but the police told him I was an adult who'd left voluntarily. They found record of my flight. I wasn't missing. I'd just left. He went to my workplace. My boss told him I'd taken a leave of absence but couldn't share any more information. Privacy policy. He checked our bank accounts. Saw that I'd cleared out my portion. Saw that I'd done it methodically, carefully, leaving him exactly what was his and taking only what was mine. He went back to the apartment and tore through everything looking for clues. Found nothing. I'd been thorough. And that's when it started to sink in. I wasn't coming back. At least not on his terms. Meanwhile, I was in Chiang Mai, having traveled north from Bangkok. I'd joined a meditation retreat. 10 days of silence, no phones, no distractions. Just me and my thoughts and the work of putting myself back together. It was brutal. The silence forced me to confront everything I'd been running from. The hurt. The betrayal. The feeling of not being enough. But it also forced me to confront something else. My own complicity. I'd spent 3 years making myself smaller to fit into Ethan's life. I'd changed jobs when he got transferred. I'd prioritized his career over mine. I'd put my dreams of traveling and writing on hold because he wanted to save money for a house. I'd become so focused on being the perfect girlfriend, the perfect fiancé, that I'd lost track of who I was outside of that relationship. And when he'd asked me to wait, I'd almost said yes and meant it. I'd almost agreed to put my life on hold indefinitely for a man who wasn't sure about me. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Just journal entries at first, processing everything I'd been through. But then I started writing about the places I was seeing, the people I was meeting, the person I was becoming. I still hadn't turned my phone back on. I'd bought a local SIM card in Thailand and set up a new email address. Only I knew it. No one from my old life could reach me. 1 month passed. Then 2. Then 3. I celebrated my 29th birthday alone on a beach in Vietnam. I ate fresh seafood, drank cheap beer, and watched the sunset. It was the best birthday I'd had in years. I didn't know it then, but back in Seattle, Ethan was falling apart. He'd moved past confusion and panic and landed firmly in obsession. He couldn't understand how I'd just vanished. How I'd planned it so perfectly that no one knew where I was. How I'd cut every digital tie so completely that there was no trace of me online. He hired a private investigator. The PI found my flight to Bangkok but lost the trail after that. Cash transactions don't leave paper trails in Southeast Asia. I'd been smart about that. He showed up at Rachel's apartment at midnight one night, drunk and crying, begging her to tell him where I was. Rachel, who I'd finally sent a single email to after 6 weeks just to let her know I was alive and safe, told him the truth. She didn't know exactly where I was. She just knew I was okay. She asked me to wait, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I asked her to wait for me, and she said yes. She lied to me. Rachel stared at him with something between pity and disgust. No, Ethan. She gave you exactly what you asked for. Time. He didn't have a response to that. My mother was furious with me at first. She didn't understand why I'd just left without a word. But my sister explained things to her, gently, and eventually Mom came around. She sent me emails through Rachel, telling me she loved me and that she'd support whatever I needed to do. My dad, surprisingly, understood immediately. Sometimes you need to burn everything down to build something better, he told my mom. Let her go. At the 4-month mark, something shifted. I was in Nepal, hiking through the Himalayas, when I realized I'd gone an entire week without thinking about Ethan. Not once. The man who'd consumed my thoughts for 3 years had become a footnote in my mental narrative. I sat on a ridge overlooking a valley of impossible beauty and started laughing. Not a bitter laugh. A genuine, joyful, holy shit I'm free kind of laugh. That night, I finally turned on my old phone. I'd been carrying it with me the whole time, powered off, like a talisman. When it booted up, it took 15 minutes to download all the notifications. 273 missed calls from Ethan. 41 voicemails. 116 text messages. The first texts were confused. Maya, where are you? Call me. Then worried. Please just let me know you're okay. Everyone's worried. Then angry. This is crazy. You can't just disappear like this. We need to talk. Then desperate. I'm sorry. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Please come home. I love you. I need you. Then bargaining. I was wrong. I don't need time. I want to marry you. Come back and we'll set a date. Please. The most recent one, sent just 3 days ago. I understand now. You were right to leave. I hope you find what you're looking for. I stared at that last message for a long time. There was something final about it. Like he was letting go. Good. I didn't respond. I turned the phone off again and put it away. But something had shifted in me too. I'd been so focused on escaping that I hadn't thought about what came next. I couldn't travel forever. Eventually, I'd need to figure out what I wanted my life to look like. I just knew it wouldn't look like the life I'd left behind. I spent another month in Nepal, then made my way to India. In Goa, I met a woman named Priya who ran a small NGO focused on education for underprivileged girls. She was fierce and funny and completely inspiring. We became friends over chai and long conversations about life and purpose and the work of finding yourself. You know what your problem is, she said to me one night. We were sitting on the beach, watching the waves. You're still defining yourself in opposition to him. You left him, so now everything you do is about not being the person you were with him. But that's still letting him control your narrative. Her words hit me hard. She was right. I'd spent 6 months running from Ethan, but I hadn't actually figured out who I was without him. I'd just figured out who I wasn't. So what do? I asked. She shrugged. Stop running. Start building. That conversation changed everything. I decided to stay in Goa for a while. I rented a small apartment near the beach. I started working remotely again, just enough to cover my expenses. And I started writing seriously. Not just journal entries, but a book. A memoir about travel and loss and the work of rebuilding yourself when everything falls apart. I made new friends. I dated casually, nothing serious. I learned to cook Indian food. I took up yoga. I volunteered with Priya's NGO, teaching English to girls who reminded me of my younger self, full of potential but unsure how to claim it. I was happy. Genuinely, surprisingly, completely happy. And I did it all without once posting about it online. My social media accounts remained deleted. I existed only in the physical world, in real relationships, in the present moment. It was the most radical thing I'd ever done. Meanwhile, back in Seattle, Ethan had finally stopped searching. My sister told me this in one of our weekly video calls. He'd moved out of our apartment. He'd started seeing someone new, though it apparently wasn't serious. He'd stopped asking about me. He seems defeated, my sister said carefully. Like he finally accepted that you're not coming back. Good, I said. And I meant it. But then something unexpected happened. 8 months after I'd left, I received an email. Not from Ethan. From his mother. Diane. I'd always liked Diane. She was warm and welcoming and had treated me like a daughter from the moment Ethan introduced us. The email was short. Maya, I don't know if you'll read this or respond. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry for what my son put you through. I raised him to be better than that. You deserved so much more. I hope you're happy, wherever you are. You were always too good for him. Love, Diane. I cried when I read it. Not sad tears. Grateful tears. Diane didn't owe me an apology. She'd done nothing wrong. But the fact that she'd reached out, that she'd validated my choice to leave, meant more than I could express. I wrote back. Told her I was safe and happy. Told her I didn't blame her for anything. Told her I appreciated her kindness more than she knew. She responded immediately. He's been lost without you. But that's his burden to carry, not yours. Live your life, sweet girl. Be free. And I was. But the universe, it seems, has a sense of humor. Because at the 10-month mark, when I was finally, truly over everything that had happened, I got a text from Rachel. Maya. You need to call me. Now. My stomach dropped. Rachel never texted like that unless something was seriously wrong. I called her immediately. What happened? Is everyone okay? Everyone's fine, she said quickly. But I need to tell you something and you're going to lose your mind. Okay. Ethan got engaged. The words didn't make sense at first. Engaged. But we'd been engaged. He'd asked me to wait. It had only been 10 months since I'd left. To who? I managed to ask. Her name is Sophia. She works at his company. They've been dating for 4 months. He proposed last week. 4 months. He'd dated someone for 4 months and proposed. While I'd waited 3 years before he'd asked me. Maya, you still there? Yeah, I said. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. I'm here. Are you okay? Was I? I thought about it. Really thought about it. And then I realized something. I was fine. Better than fine. I felt nothing. No jealousy, no anger, not even surprise really. Just a kind of detached curiosity. I'm good, I said. And I meant it. Actually, I'm really good. I hope he's happy. I hope she knows what she's getting into. Rachel was quiet for a moment. You really are over him? Yeah, I said. I really am. But then Rachel said something that changed everything. There's more. More. The wedding. He wants it to be at the same venue you guys had booked. The same date you'd chosen. He's basically recreating the wedding you were supposed to have, but with her. Now that I felt. Not pain. Rage. The audacity. The absolute audacity of this man to take the wedding I'd planned, the dreams I'd shared with him, and just transfer them to someone else like I'd never existed. Maya. Talk to me. I took a deep breath. I'm fine. It's fine. Let him have his wedding. But I wasn't fine. And it wasn't fine. Because here's the thing about running away, eventually, you have to decide if you're going to stay gone or go back and face what you left behind. I'd thought I was done with Seattle. Done with that chapter of my life. But Ethan using my wedding, my plans, my dreams for someone else. That was a line crossed. I'd left quietly. Peacefully. I'd disappeared without making a scene, without trying to hurt him, without seeking revenge. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe he needed to understand exactly what he'd lost. And what he'd thrown away. I told Rachel I'd call her back. Then I sat on my balcony in Goa, watching the sun set over the Arabian Sea, and made a decision. I was going home. Not to get back together with Ethan. Not to stop the wedding. Not even to confront him, not really. I was going home to show him exactly who I'd become without him. To let him see what he'd given up when he'd asked me to wait while he figured out his feelings. I was going home to haunt him. The flight from Goa to Seattle, with layovers, took nearly 24 hours. I had a lot of time to think. To plan. To decide exactly how I wanted this to go. The old Maya would have shown up angry, made a scene, demanded answers. But I wasn't the old Maya anymore. I was someone new. Someone stronger, clearer, more certain of herself than I'd ever been. I wasn't going back to Seattle to burn bridges. I was going back to build new ones. And if Ethan happened to be in the vicinity when I did, well, that was just geography. I landed at SeaTac on a Thursday afternoon. Rachel picked me up from the airport. When she saw me, she actually gasped. Holy shit, Maya. What? You look. I don't know. Different. Good different. Really good different. I'd lost weight, but in a healthy way. All the walking and yoga and fresh food had transformed my body. My skin was tan and clear. My hair was longer, sun-bleached. I was wearing clothes I'd bought in India, flowy and colorful and nothing like the corporate attire I used to wear. But the biggest change, I knew, wasn't physical. It was in the way I carried myself. There was a confidence there that hadn't existed before. A certainty. Rachel drove me to her apartment. I'd be staying with her until I figured out my next move. On the drive, she filled me in on everything I'd missed. Ethan's engagement party was happening that weekend. Big affair, all our old friends invited. Well, his friends now, I supposed. Though Rachel had been invited and had declined. The wedding was scheduled for 3 months out. Same venue. Same date I'd chosen. Same fucking vision board I'd created on Pinterest, apparently. Sophia had shown it to people, proud of their wedding plans. She has no idea, does she? I asked. That it was all my ideas. Rachel shook her head. I don't think so. Or if she does, she doesn't care. And Ethan? He's been telling people that you two grew apart and that the breakup was mutual. Clean narrative. No one knows you just vanished. Of course he had. Heaven forbid anyone know the truth, that he'd asked me to put my life on hold, and I'd decided I was worth more than that. That night, I did something I hadn't done in 10 months. I recreated my Instagram account. Not with my old photos. With new ones. Photos from Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Nepal, India. Photos of me looking happy and free and absolutely thriving. I didn't post them all at once. That would be too obvious. I posted one. Just one. A photo of me on a beach in Goa, sunset in the background, the caption, "Home is wherever you're brave enough to be yourself." Within an hour, I had 50 likes. By morning, over 200. People I hadn't spoken to in months were commenting, Where have you been? You look amazing. I've missed your post. I didn't respond to any of them. I just let the photo exist, a breadcrumb for anyone who was looking. Including Ethan. Rachel told me he'd seen it. One of his friends had shown him. He'd apparently gone pale and then excused himself from the conversation. Good. Over the next week, I slowly reintegrated into Seattle life. I met up with old friends, carefully selecting which ones and when. I was strategic about it. Coffee dates in public places where I knew would be seen. Lunches at restaurants near Ethan's office. Accidentally on purpose crossing paths with people from his social circle. I wasn't hiding anymore. But I wasn't chasing either. I was simply existing. Visibly. Confidently. Undeniably transformed. The reactions were gratifying. People who'd known me before couldn't believe the change. They wanted to know where I'd been, what I'd done, how I'd managed to just disappear and come back looking like I'd discovered the secret to happiness. I told them the truth, mostly. I'd needed space. I'd traveled. I'd found myself. I didn't mention Ethan. I didn't have to. Everyone knew. They could do the math. And with every conversation, every sighting, every Instagram post, I knew the information was flowing back to him. People talk. Especially in our social circle. I was counting on it. The engagement party was on Saturday night. I wasn't invited, obviously. But I knew where it was. A rooftop bar downtown, the same place where Ethan and I had celebrated our engagement 3 years ago. Of course it was. I didn't go to the party. But I did go downtown that night. I went to a different rooftop bar, 3 blocks away. I posted a photo of the Seattle skyline with the caption, "Forgot how beautiful this city looks at night." The timestamp matched his engagement party. The message was clear. I was in Seattle. I was out. I was living my life. And I wasn't hiding in my room crying over him. Rachel told me later that he'd checked his phone during the party and seen the post. He'd spent the next hour distracted, barely paying attention to his own engagement celebration. Sophia had noticed. They'd fought about it after. She'd demanded to know why he was so obsessed with his ex. He'd told her he wasn't. That he was just surprised I was back. But he was lying. To her and to himself. Because the thing about asking someone to wait while you figure out your feelings is that you never expect them to stop waiting. You expect them to be there when you're ready. Available. Grateful that you finally chose them. Ethan had expected that when he was ready to commit, I'd still be there. And when I wasn't, when I'd disappeared, he'd convinced himself that I'd been the one who'd abandoned him. That I'd been unreasonable. That I'd given up on us. But now I was back. And I wasn't the broken woman he'd left behind. I was something else entirely. Something he didn't recognize. Something he couldn't have. And it was driving him crazy. The Sunday after the engagement party, I went to the farmer's market. Our farmer's market. The one Ethan and I used to go to every weekend. I bought fresh flowers and organic vegetables and expensive coffee. I ran into 3 people we'd known as a couple. All of them asked where I'd been. All of them told me I looked incredible. All of them mentioned, casually, that Ethan was engaged now. I heard, I said, smiling. I'm happy for him. I wasn't. But I was happy for me. And that's what mattered. On Monday, I met with my old boss. She was thrilled to have me back, even if only part-time. She offered me a promotion, actually. A role with more flexibility, more creative control, more money. I'd proven I could work remotely and still deliver exceptional results. She wanted to make sure I didn't disappear again. I took the job. Tuesday, I signed a lease on a new apartment. Small, modern, with a view of the water. Nothing like the place Ethan and I had shared. This was mine. All mine. Wednesday, I posted a photo of the apartment with the caption, "New chapter, new space, same me but better." Thursday, Ethan reached out. It was a text message. From his number, which I still had saved in my phone even though I'd never unblocked it. "Maya. I know I have no right to ask this, but can we talk? Please." I stared at that message for a full hour before responding. About what? Three dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. This went on for 5 minutes. Finally, about everything. About us. About what happened. There is no us, Ethan. There hasn't been for almost a year. I know. I just need to see you. To explain. To apologize. Please. I could have said no. Should have said no. But there was a part of me that wanted this. Wanted to look him in the eye and let him see exactly what he'd lost. Fine. Saturday. 2 p.m. The coffee shop on Pine Street. Public place. Afternoon. Time limit implicit. I was in control of this meeting, not him. Thank you. I'll be there. I told Rachel about the meeting. She thought I was crazy. Why would you give him the satisfaction of a conversation? She asked. Because I want him to see that I don't need closure from him. I've already moved on. This is just me being polite. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me. Maybe I didn't believe me either. But I was going anyway. Saturday came. I dressed carefully. Not too formal, not too casual. Jeans and a flowy blouse I'd bought in Japan. Minimal makeup. Hair down. I looked good but effortless. Like I hadn't tried. Like this meeting didn't matter. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes late. On purpose. Ethan was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 10 months. He looked tired. Stressed. His hair was longer than he usually kept it. He'd lost weight, but not in the healthy way I had. He stood when he saw me. Maya. Ethan. We Saturday. An awkward silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke. You look amazing. Thank you. I've been following your posts. Well, the few you've made. It looks like you've been everywhere. I have. Why didn't you tell anyone where you were going? I took a sip of the coffee I'd ordered. Because it wasn't anyone's business. I needed to leave. So I did. You didn't even say goodbye. You told me you needed time to figure out if you wanted me. I decided I needed time to figure out if I wanted you. Turns out, I don't. He flinched. That's fair. I deserve that. You deserve a lot more than that, Ethan. But I'm not here to punish you. I'm here because you asked to talk. So talk. He took a breath. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I got scared. Of the commitment, of the forever part, of the possibility that I'd never have another experience with anyone else. And instead of talking to you about it, I asked you to wait while I figured my shit out. That was cruel and unfair and I'm sorry. Okay. That's it. What do you want me to say, Ethan? That I forgive you. I do. That I understand. I don't. But it doesn't matter anymore. You made your choice. I made mine. We're both moving on. Are we though? He leaned forward. Because I'm not. I thought I was. I thought Sophia was what I needed. Someone new, someone different, someone who wasn't you. But she's not you, Maya. No one is. That's not my problem. I know. But I can't stop thinking about you. About what we had. About what I threw away. Then maybe you shouldn't be engaged to someone else. He looked down at his hands. Maybe I shouldn't. I stood up. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come. Wait. He grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to stop me. Please. Just listen. Let go of me. He did, immediately. I love you. I've never stopped loving you. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking anyway. Call off my engagement. Come back to me. We can start over. We can do it right this time. I stared at him. At this man who'd held my heart for 3 years. Who'd proposed to me on a beach. Who'd asked me to wait while he decided if I was worth keeping. Who was now engaged to someone else but asking me to come back. And I felt nothing. No anger, no love, no temptation. Just a profound sense of relief that I'd escaped when I did. No, I said simply. Maya, no, Ethan. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the one you run to when your new relationship isn't working out. I'm not interested in starting over with someone who made me feel like I wasn't enough. I'm done. Completely, totally, permanently done. But, marry Sophia. Or don't. I don't care. But leave me alone. I didn't come back to Seattle for you. I came back for me. You're not part of my life anymore. I walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. My phone buzzed before I'd even reached my car. A text from him. Please don't do this. We can fix this. I blocked his number. Then I drove to Rachel's apartment and told her everything. I'm proud of you, she said. That took guts. It took 10 months of being away from him to realize I deserve better. You always deserved better. That night, I slept better than I had in days. There was a finality to that conversation that felt like closing a chapter I'd been carrying around for too long. But Ethan, apparently, wasn't done. On Sunday, flowers arrived at my new apartment. 24 red roses with a card that said, I'm sorry. Please give me a chance to explain. I gave them to my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She was delighted. On Monday, more flowers. I gave those away too. On Tuesday, he showed up at my office. Security called me down to the lobby. There's a man here who says he needs to speak with you. We've told him he can't come up without authorization, but he's insisting. I went down. Ethan was standing in the lobby, looking desperate. You blocked me, he said. Yes. I need to talk to you. We talked. We're done. Maya, please. Just give me 5 minutes. No. And if you show up here again, I'll file a restraining order. Leave me alone, Ethan. I turned and walked back to the elevators. He didn't follow. But I could feel his eyes on me the entire way. That night, he called Rachel. She didn't answer. He called my sister. She told him to fuck off. He even called my mother, who politely but firmly told him that I'd asked not to be contacted and he needed to respect that. He was spiraling. And I felt bad about that, I really did. But I also felt resolute. I'd set a boundary. He needed to respect it. Wednesday morning, I woke up to a series of Instagram DMs. Not from Ethan. From Sophia. We need to talk about Ethan. I stared at the message for a long moment, then responded. I don't think we do. He's obsessed with you. He's been distracted ever since you came back to Seattle. He won't talk to me about it, but I know something's going on. That's between you and him. Did he try to get back together with you? I hesitated. Then decided she deserved the truth. Yes. And what did you say? I said no. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, can we meet? In person? This was a bad idea. I knew it was a bad idea. But curiosity got the better of me. Fine. Thursday. Noon. Same coffee shop on Pine Street. Thursday arrived. I got to the coffee shop early this time. Sophia showed up right on time. She was pretty in a conventional way. Blonde, petite, perfectly put together. The kind of woman Ethan's mother probably loved. Thank you for meeting me, she said as she sat down. I'm not sure why I'm here, I admitted. Because I need to know if I'm wasting my time with a man who's still in love with his ex. Direct. I could appreciate that. He asked me to come back to him, I said. I said no. I'm not interested in rekindling anything with Ethan. I've moved on. She looked relieved for about half a second. Then suspicious. Why did you come back to Seattle? For me. For my job, my family, my life. Not for him. But you had to know he'd see you. That it would mess with his head. I'm not responsible for what happens in his head. I'm allowed to live in my own city without considering his feelings. She was quiet for a moment. Did you love him? Yes. Very much. What happened? I debated how much to tell her. Then decided she deserved to know what she was getting into. He proposed to me 3 years into our relationship. I said yes. We started planning a wedding. Then out of nowhere, he told me he wasn't ready to commit. That he needed time to figure out if he really wanted to marry me. He asked me to wait while he sorted out his feelings. Sophia's face went pale. And you left. I left. Because I realized that if he wasn't sure about me after 3 years, he never would be. And I wasn't going to put my life on hold for someone who saw me as optional. How long were you gone? 10 months. And in that time, he started dating me. Apparently. She let out a bitter laugh. 4 months. He dated me for 4 months before proposing. Do you know what that tells me now? That he wasn't actually ready to commit. He was trying to prove something. Maybe to you, maybe to himself. But either way, I'm the rebound. I didn't say anything. She was working it out on her own. Did you know about the wedding venue? She asked. That it's the same one you'd booked. Rachel told me. It's sick, isn't it? He's literally recreating your wedding with me. It's not about you, I said gently. It's about him trying to have the life he thought he wanted, but with less risk. You're easier than I was. You didn't ask him hard questions. You didn't challenge him. You said yes quickly and he convinced himself that meant something. She was crying now. Not sobbing, just tears sliding down her cheeks. I thought he loved me. Maybe he does. Or maybe he loves the idea of you. I don't know. But what I do know is that you deserve someone who's sure about you from the start. Not someone who's using you to avoid dealing with his own issues. She wiped her eyes. I hate that you're right. I'm sorry. No, you're not. She was right. I wasn't. Not really. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know yet. But thank you for being honest with me. She stood up and left. I stayed for another coffee, processing what had just happened. I told myself I wasn't back for revenge. But this felt like something. Not revenge, exactly. More like justice. Like the universe correcting an imbalance. 2 days later, Rachel called me, laughing so hard she could barely speak. Have you seen Ethan's Facebook? I don't have Facebook anymore. Sophia broke up with him. Cancelled the wedding. Made a public post about how she deserves someone who's emotionally available and ready for commitment. Good for her. Everyone's speculating about what happened. Some people think he cheated. Others think she met someone else. But I know. It was you, wasn't it? You talked to her. She reached out to me. I just told her the truth. Rachel was silent for a moment. You're terrifying, you know that? I prefer strategic. But the thing was, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. This whole situation was exhausting. I'd come back to Seattle to build a new life, and instead, I'd gotten dragged back into Ethan's drama. That weekend, I made a decision. I was done engaging with anything related to him. No more meetings, no more conversations, no more thinking about what he was doing or feeling or planning. I threw myself into my work. Into my writing. I started looking into graduate programs for creative writing. I joined a book club. I took up rock climbing. I dated casually, nothing serious. I built a life in Seattle that had nothing to do with the life I'd left behind. And slowly, the Ethan drama faded into background noise. Until 3 months later, when something happened that I never saw coming. I was at a gallery opening in Capitol Hill. A friend from my old marketing job was showcasing her photography, and I'd promised to come support her. I was standing in front of a photo of the Himalayas, sipping wine and thinking about my time in Nepal, when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around and froze. It was Diane. Ethan's mother. Maya, she said, her eyes warm but sad. I thought that was you. Diane. Hi. You look wonderful. Can we talk for a minute? We found a quiet corner of the gallery. Diane looked older than I remembered, more tired. I wanted to apologize, she said. For everything. For my son's behavior, for the way things ended, for all of it. You don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I raised him. So maybe I did. She sighed. He's not doing well, Maya. The breakup with Sophia, the realization of what he lost with you, it's broken something in him. I felt a pang of something. Not sympathy, exactly. More like the ghost of old feelings. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you though? She asked it kindly, without judgment. I don't wish him pain. But I also don't think I'm responsible for fixing it. You're not. You're absolutely not. I just wanted you to know that I don't blame you for leaving. I probably would have done the same thing. He asked you to wait while he figured out if you were enough. What a stupid, cruel thing to do to someone you claim to love. Hearing her say it out loud, validating what I'd felt, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. She hugged me then. A real hug, warm and maternal. I hope you find everything you're looking for, she said. You deserve to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan. She left after that, disappearing into the crowd. I stood there for a long moment, processing the encounter. That night, I went home and pulled out my laptop. I'd been working on my memoir sporadically, but suddenly, I knew how it needed to end. Not with triumph or revenge or him coming back and begging. But with me, walking away and building something better. With me, realizing that the best revenge isn't hurting the person who hurt you. It's becoming so genuinely happy without them that their absence becomes irrelevant. I wrote for 6 hours straight. The words poured out of me like a dam had broken. By the time the sun came up, I had a complete first draft. It wasn't perfect. It would need editing, revising, probably another few drafts. But it was done. The story of how I'd lost myself in a relationship and found myself in leaving it. 2 weeks later, I sent the manuscript to a literary agent who'd expressed interest based on the sample chapters I'd posted on my blog. She called me 3 days after that. Maya, I love it. I think we can sell this. Are you ready to put your story out there? Was I? It meant going public with everything. With the details of my relationship with Ethan, with the breakup, with my disappearance. It meant letting people see the most vulnerable parts of me. But it also meant owning my story. Telling it my way. Not letting anyone else control the narrative. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The book sold in a 2-book deal 6 weeks later. The publisher wanted to fast-track it, get it out within a year. They saw potential for it to hit the cultural zeitgeist, a story about a woman who refused to wait for a man to decide she was worth loving. I signed the contract on a Tuesday afternoon. Rachel took me out for celebratory drinks that night. We got tipsy on expensive wine and laughed about how far I'd come from that night 10 months ago when I'd booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok. Do you ever regret it? Rachel asked. Leaving the way you did? No, I said without hesitation. Best decision I ever made. Even though it hurt. Especially because it hurt. The hurt meant I was choosing myself over someone who wasn't choosing me. That's not something to regret. That's something to celebrate. We clinked glasses. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from an unknown number and a voicemail. Against my better judgment, I listened to it. Maya, it's Ethan. I know you blocked me. I got a new number. I heard about your book deal. Congratulations, that's amazing. I'm happy for you. I wanted you to know that I understand now. What I did to you. What I asked of you. It was unfair and selfish and wrong. You deserved better. You deserved everything. And I'm sorry it took losing you for me to realize that. I'm not asking you to call me back or to forgive me or to give me another chance. I just needed to say it. You were right to leave. And I hope your book tells the world exactly what an idiot I was. Goodbye, Maya. I listened to the voicemail 3 times. There was something final in his tone. Like he was finally letting go. Like he'd accepted that I was never coming back. Good. I didn't call him back. I didn't need to. He'd said what he needed to say, and now it was over. Really, truly over. I deleted the voicemail and moved on with my day. The book came out 11 months later. It was called The Art of Disappearing, Finding Yourself When Someone Asks You to Wait. The reviews were incredible. Readers connected with the story of a woman who chose herself over a relationship that no longer served her. Who literally disappeared to find herself. Who came back stronger, clearer, more certain of her worth. It hit the bestseller list in its 2nd week. I did interviews, podcasts, book signings. People asked me constantly if I regretted how things ended with my ex. If I'd heard from him. If I still loved him. No, I said every time. That story ended the moment I got on a plane to Thailand. Everything after that has been about me. The book tour took me to 12 cities. In every one, women came up to me with tears in their eyes, thanking me for writing their story. For giving them permission to leave relationships where they felt like an option instead of a priority. Your book saved me, one woman said at a signing in Portland. I was waiting for my boyfriend to propose for 5 years. He kept saying he wasn't ready. After reading your story, I realized I deserved someone who was sure about me. I left him last month. Good, I said. You deserve to be someone's first choice. She started crying. Thank you. Thank you for showing me it was okay to choose myself. Moments like that made everything worth it. The pain, the heartbreak, the terror of starting over. If my story could help even one person realize their worth, it was worth it. I was in Boston for a signing when I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, "Thank you." I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But something made me open it. Maya, you don't know me, but I'm Ethan's therapist. Or was. He recently terminated our sessions because he said he'd finally gotten the closure he needed. I'm not supposed to reach out like this, and I'll probably delete this email account right after sending this, but I wanted you to know, your book helped him too. Not in the way you might think. It helped him see his patterns, understand his fear of commitment, recognize the damage he'd caused. He's working on himself now. Really working on himself. He told me in our last session that he hopes you have an incredible life and that he's genuinely sorry for the pain he caused you. He also said he's not going to read the book because it's not for him. It's yours. Your story to tell. And he respects that. I just thought you should know. Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I read the email 3 times, then deleted it. I was glad Ethan was getting help. Glad he was working on himself. But she was right. My book wasn't for him. It was for me. And for every person who'd ever felt like they weren't enough for someone they loved. The book tour ended in Seattle. My hometown. The place where it all began and ended and began again. The signing was at Elliott Bay Book Company. The store was packed. Rachel was there, my sister, my parents, old friends, new friends, colleagues, acquaintances. So many people who'd watched me disappear and come back transformed. I read a passage from the book. The part where I describe sitting on a plane to Bangkok, terrified and exhilarated, leaving behind everything I knew for the possibility of something better. I didn't know if I'd find what I was looking for, I read. But I knew I wouldn't find it by waiting for someone else to decide I was worth loving. So I left. And in leaving, I learned the most important lesson of my life. You can't make someone choose you. But you can always choose yourself. The room erupted in applause. I looked out at all those faces and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Not for the breakup or the pain, but for what came after. For the version of myself I'd discovered when I stopped waiting for permission to live my life. During the Q&A, someone asked the inevitable question, "Do you think you'll ever talk to your ex again?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe someday. Maybe never. But it doesn't matter. My story isn't about him anymore. It's about me. And that's exactly how I want it." After the signing, Rachel and I walked along the waterfront. It was a clear night, the kind where you can see the stars despite the city lights. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Really, truly happy?" I thought about the question. About the last year and a half. About everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. About the woman I'd been and the woman I'd become. "Yes," I said. "I really am." And I meant it. But life, it turns out, always has one more twist. 3 months after the book tour ended, I was at a coffee shop working on my second book when someone sat down across from me. I looked up, ready to politely tell them the seat was taken, and froze. Ethan. He looked different. Better. Healthier. There was a calmness to him that hadn't been there before. "I'm not stalking you," he said immediately. "I live 2 blocks away. I come here every morning. I didn't know you'd be here." "Okay. Can I buy you a coffee?" Not as a date. Not as anything. Just as one human to another. I should have said no. Should have packed up my laptop and left. But curiosity won out. Fine. He went to the counter and came back with 2 coffees. He remembered my order. Oat milk latte with an extra shot. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he spoke. I read your book. You said you weren't going to. I lied. I'm sorry. I needed to see how you told the story. How you remembered us. And you were fair. More than fair. You didn't villainize me, even though you had every right to. You just told the truth. That I was scared and selfish and I hurt someone I loved because I couldn't deal with my own issues. That is what happened. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm truly, deeply sorry. I know. I got your voicemail. And the message from your therapist. He looked surprised. She contacted you? Once. Then deleted the account. She shouldn't have done it, but I'm glad she did. I'm glad you're working on yourself. I am. It's hard. But necessary. I've learned a lot about why I couldn't commit. About my parents' divorce and my fear of ending up like my dad and how I sabotaged the best thing that ever happened to me because I was terrified of getting hurt. That's good. That's progress. Maya, I'm not here to ask for another chance. I know that ship has sailed. But I need to know, are you happy? Really happy? Because if my fuck-up led to you finding yourself and building this incredible life, then maybe it wasn't all bad. I looked at him. At this man who'd once been my entire world. Who'd asked me to wait and then been shocked when I stopped waiting. Who'd broken my heart so completely I'd had to flee the country to heal. And I smiled. A real smile. I'm happy, Ethan. Happier than I've ever been. He nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Good. That's good. You deserve it. So do you. Maybe someday. He stood up to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. The book, the way you took control of your story, all of it. You're incredible. Thank you. And Maya, thank you for not waiting. For choosing yourself. You taught me more about love by leaving than I ever learned by staying. Then he walked out of the coffee shop and out of my life for good. I sat there for a long time, staring at my coffee, processing what had just happened. It felt like closing a loop I hadn't realized was still open. Like a final punctuation mark on a chapter that had been missing its ending. I pulled out my phone and texted Rachel, just ran into Ethan. It was fine. Better than fine. It's really over. She responded immediately. How do you feel? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Free, I typed. I feel free. And that was the truth. I'd spent so long running from the pain he'd caused that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying it with me. But now, seeing him healthy and working on himself and genuinely happy for me, I could finally let it go. All of it. The hurt, the anger, the betrayal, the vindication. I could release it all and just move forward, unencumbered. I finished my coffee and went back to working on my second book. This one wasn't about heartbreak or leaving. It was about building. About what comes after you walk away. About the life you create when you stop waiting for permission to be yourself. 6 months later, I met someone. His name was Daniel. He was a photographer I'd met at an art gallery. He asked me out after we spent an hour talking about our favorite travel destinations. On our first date, he told me he'd read my book and admired my courage. But I don't want to be the next chapter in your healing story, he said. I want to be part of your happy story. If that's something you're open to. I looked at this man who was being upfront about his intentions, who was clear about what he wanted, who wasn't asking me to wait or wonder or guess. I'm open to it, I said. We took things slow. He never made me feel like I was optional. Never asked me to put my life on hold. Never expected me to be anything other than exactly who I was. 8 months later, he asked me to move in with him. Not because we'd hit some arbitrary timeline, but because he was sure. Because he couldn't imagine his life without me in it. Because he wanted to wake up next to me every morning. You don't have to answer now, he said. Think about it. But know that I'm all in. Completely. Whenever you're ready. I didn't need to think about it. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Because I was. Not because I'd healed from Ethan. But because I'd healed myself. I'd learned my worth. I'd learned to choose myself first. And from that place of wholeness, I could choose someone else too. Someone who chose me back. Without hesitation. Without asking me to wait. My second book came out a year later. It was called Building Beautiful, Life After the Walk Away. At the launch party, Daniel squeezed my hand and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." I looked around the room at all the people who'd supported me through my journey. Rachel, my family, new friends, old friends, readers who'd connected with my story. And I realized something. The story everyone thinks ended when I left Ethan? That was just the beginning. The real story was what came after. The rebuilding. The rediscovery. The reclamation of myself. The learning to love someone new without losing myself in the process. The understanding that the best revenge isn't making someone regret losing you. It's building a life so fulfilling that their absence becomes irrelevant. 2 years after my book came out, I heard through mutual friends that Ethan was engaged again. To someone new. Someone he'd apparently been dating for over a year. Someone he seemed genuinely happy with. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked when she told me. "I'm great," I said. And meant it. Because his happiness didn't diminish mine. His moving on didn't mean I'd meant nothing. It just meant we'd both grown past who we were when we were together. And that was okay. More than okay. At my own wedding 3 years after I'd walked out of that coffee shop where Ethan had asked me to wait, I stood in front of Daniel and promised him forever. But this time, forever didn't scare me. Because I wasn't losing myself in the promise. I was choosing it. Freely. Fully. Without reservation. During the reception, my sister pulled me aside. "You know what I realized," she said. "The best thing Ethan ever did for you was let you go." "He didn't let me go," I corrected. "I let me go. He just gave me a reason to." She laughed. Fair point. That night, dancing with Daniel under string lights in a garden that overlooked the ocean, I thought about that girl who'd boarded a plane to Bangkok with a broken heart and a one-way ticket. I thought about how scared she'd been. How hurt. How uncertain of everything except the knowledge that she couldn't stay where she was. I thought about how she'd wandered through strange cities and found pieces of herself in unexpected places. I thought about how she'd come home not to the life she'd left, but to the life she'd built. And I whispered a silent thank you to her. To that version of me who'd been brave enough to choose herself when it mattered most. Because that choice changed everything. That night, I posted one final Instagram post about the journey. A photo of Daniel and me at our wedding, laughing at something someone had said. The caption was simple. 3 years ago, someone asked me to wait. I smiled and said, "Of course." Then I deleted my socials and vanished overseas. Best decision I ever made. Not because of who I left behind, but because of who I became. Here's to choosing yourself, always. The post went viral. Thousands of comments from people who'd read my books or followed my story or just connected with the message. But the comment that made me smile the most came from an unexpected source. "Ethan. Congratulations, Maya. I'm genuinely happy for you. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Thank you for teaching me what it means to really love someone. Wishing you a beautiful life." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The story was complete. Not with revenge or regret or reconciliation. But with peace. And that, I realized, was the best ending of all. What would you do in this situation? Have you ever had to choose between waiting for someone and choosing yourself? Tell me in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because trust me, the best revenge stories aren't about destroying someone else. They're about building yourself into someone unbreakable. See you in the next story.